Hello again there, guys. Brian here at 3TR, and to continue my chain of top 10s list for the end of the year, last week I decided to do my top 10 most anticipated games of next year, but now it's time to get the worst out of the worst out of the way. And this is my list of the top 10 worst movies I saw this year. Now, I'd just like to state off right now that the first three don't necessarily apply as being bad movies or really officially part of my worst. It's just they're more disappointing than being terrible movies. I just didn't have enough to make a top 10 most disappointing movies, so I decided to take the 7 worst movies and the top 3 most disappointing movies I saw this year and combine them into one list. So, without further ado, let's start off with number 10, which in this case is actually the number 3 most disappointing movie I saw this year, and that was Act of Valor. Now, I know what you're thinking. And before you press that dislike button, let me explain my argument. Now, I did not think for any second that Act of Valor was a bad movie. My biggest problem with Act of Valor is that they had an amazing opportunity to do something that really hadn't been attempted in previous movies of its kind, but it just didn't do anything to make it memorable. It felt like one really long armed services commercial. I mean, let's just think about this for a second. The entire plot was that a team of Navy SEALs had to uncover a plot set off by some generic terrorist group and stop them. It was simply go from point A to point B to point Z. That's it. There were no twists. You hardly got to know any of the Navy SEAls' personality except for the 2 main ones, which you knew one of them was going to die. And just everything about it just simply shouted out generic. It literally had nothing memorable. And the fact that we are living in an age which we are now called the Call of Duty era, I mean, at least Call of Duty has memorable set pieces which are actually cool to look at, or it's something we've never seen before. But everything about Act of Valor just didn't try to jump out of its comfort zone and not take any chances. So that's why it was disappointing. Now, to go on to number 9, I have John Carter. Now, John Connor had probably one of the most overhyped budgets I think I've ever heard. I believe it was over $200 million, and it ended up being one of the biggest busts. Biggest problem with John Carter, and I'm sure many people agree, was it just wasn't very consistent with itself. And I'm sorry, but Taylor Kitsch just doesn't seem to have that I can carry a movie by myself type of presence. The visuals were absolutely amazing, but visuals alone cannot hold up a story. And the story for this one, although I think it was kind of somewhat well adapted from the actual book, it just wasn't executed enough. You need a strong group of characters and strong visuals in order to pull it together and make a compelling story. And what the graphics were able to do, the storytelling and just performance and just the overall just execution of how this movie done failed. And that's why it was disappointing to me. And finally on my disappointment list we have Cloud Atlas. Now again, many people are going to be on one side of the fence. You either like this movie or you absolutely hate it. I kind of like to go on the middle of the fence here. Now, I can understand what the Wachowskis were trying to do with this particular story. It visually is very beautiful, and it's really unlike any movie that came out this year. The problem is I think that they were trying to tell the overall point of this whole concept of story in the wrong way. It kept jumping from several different time zones, and it made it really confusing to find out which characters were connected to who, because, you know, there were certain birthmarks, and maybe it was played by the same actor, or it just was unclear. The best way they could have told the story is if they simply did back-to-back which stories were connected to which, just singularity. We'll connect these 2 stories, and once these 2 stories are done, we'll go on to this one, and we just show it 3 times in a row, instead of just jumping between 6 different storylines at one time and making it completely impossible to understand what is going on here. So, sadly, that is why Cloud Atlas is on this list. Now it's time to get on to the worst of the worst of the worst. And now, we go with number 7 with The Raven. I was really looking forward to this movie, I really was, but everything about it once I saw this movie just screamed out disappointment. This movie was so bad that I actually deleted the review I did for this 24 hours later. Everything about it was wrong. I thought John Cusack could have been an interesting choice to play Edgar Allan Poe, but after seeing this, he clearly was not the right guy for it, and I really can't think of anyone who really could pull this off. And the whole concept of Edgar Allan Poe being part of an investigation to find a murderer who has kidnapped his girlfriend or fiancée, and this killer was inspired by his work, it just screams BS. I mean, just BS all around. I mean, there was a ton of great actors in this, and they were just put to waste with their great talents. Just everything just didn't work. I can understand the point that they were trying to get across, but heck, just because you won't have the intention to make a really great cake doesn't mean it's going to taste very well once you pull it out of the oven. On to number 6, we have Alex Cross. Okay. As I said in my original review, I don't think Tyler Perry is a bad actor. This simply was the absolute wrong choice for him to step out of his comfort zone. I think he needs to at least retire his own fashion of movie styles and really sit down and think about projects that he could do which aren't really relevant to what he's done, but kind of what he at least has confidence in pulling off. And the fact that this had quite possibly one of the worst film fight scenes ever, to the point where you can't even see what is going on the entire time, and it feels like whoever's holding the camera is drunk or something, is just disorientating. I'm sorry, but Alex Cross could have been so much more worse, and if it had been, it would have been higher up on my list. On to number 5, we have Ghost Rider. Now, I understand Nicolas Cage for being in bad movies, but personally, I like him. I understand his style of acting, and it really doesn't bother me. I mean, he's actually been in some really great movies in the 90s that I really enjoyed, including Con Air and Face Off. Those were great movies. But the fact that Ghost Rider at least was able to push the bar over the first one kind of gives it some points, which is why it's not higher, or should I say lower on my list. Gives it some entertainment value, but just the overall story just doesn't work. The best thing that I could say Ghost Rider will give you is that Ghost Rider does look badass, and all the action he does is cool, but there's just some problems in terms of story and exactly how these characters function and their personalities that just makes the movie collapse under its own weight. On to number 4, we have Battleship. Another Tyler Kish movie in which he actually tries to see if he can actually hold a movie on his own. And the whole concept of making a movie based off a board game when it really doesn't have anything to do with the board game. I really think Battleship would have worked if this movie had taken place during World War II during the Pacific, and actually shown battles between the United States and the Japanese. I mean, I really believe, I don't know the backstory on the board game, but I really think that's what it was based off, because those were some of the most epic battleship battles in history. Why not show that to us? Because I know that most people don't really do much history research for some movies like this, but throwing aliens in there, and dear God, putting Rihanna in there, I mean, I can't stand her singing, let alone her acting. And I'm just tired of talking about Battleship. The more I think about it, the more pissed off I get. Now, on to number 3, we have the Bourne Legacy. Wow, talk about how to try to kill a franchise with one movie. Now, the original 3 Bourne movies are great, and probably are some of the best action movies, and probably one of the best trilogies we've had in the past 20 years. Matt Damon is absolutely phenomenal as the character of Jason Bourne. But Jeremy Renner playing, I can't even remember his character's name, was just very underwhelming, and it seemed to undo everything that the Bourne movies did. This was a perfect example of a group of people trying to make a Bourne film after the Bourne films, having never seen the Bourne films and not knowing exactly what made them so great. It was about creating an interesting, well-told story with great action pieces. And seeing how this one had hardly any action and really didn't even put Jeremy Renner's character in any sense of danger, made it completely underwhelming and just uninteresting. And made it long as hell and made me want to ask for my money back, which I really wish I did get it back, because this is not even worth renting at your local Redbox. Now on to number 2, which is just painful. We have to go with Taken 2. who actually enjoyed this film. There were so many problems with this movie that I can't even list them all in one movie. So I'm going to leave the link down below in the description to my personal rant on it, and you will have your full explanation of what's wrong with this movie. From them having his daughter throw grenades in the middle of a city to no one paying attention, to Liam Neeson's character having superpowers, to having the dumbest kidnappers just do all the wrong things to allow this guy to escape and take them out one at a time, just spells out defeat. I could tell they tried to make a franchise out of this concept, but this was not the concept to make a franchise of. Taken 1 was a good story because it was simple and it was straight to the point. And it had at least decent acting and had a well performance by Liam Neeson. But this movie just trashed that all, and the fact that they're even considering making a third one just makes this one seem that much worse. And now on to the number 1, the absolute worst movie I saw this year, which I already declared several months back, and that is, of course, Resident Evil I don't even want to say the name. Retrbution. Paul W. Sanderson, if you see this, if you're seeing this video, please stop making these movies. I mean, I know you have maybe one more since you left this one open, but the only worse thing than kicking a dog that's done nothing to you is kicking a dog that's already down. I mean, for those of you who really hate Capcom, if you think what Capcom has been doing with putting already downloadable contents onto your disc and you already paying full price for it and not giving you access to it is bad, then this is even worse, because these movies have generally gotten worse and worse since after Resident Evil 1. Simply because he feels the need to take everything that we love about Resident Evil and do it his own way with absolutely no consideration or no respect to the source material, just to make sure that his wife Alice is the star of the show. No matter what Resident Evil does, she has to be on top. The whole world has to revolve around her. Well, that is your biggest problem, is that it doesn't revolve around one person. And that is the biggest mistake you have made since Resident Evil 2. You don't make it about just one person, because once you do, then the plot cannot go forward without this person. No plot should only be driven by one character. And everything from stealing references from Alien to having some of our most favorite characters like Barry get killed off in pussified ways just screams disrespect. And you really think that anyone is going to accept you wanting to take over Castlevania and turn that to a movie? I think not. And that is why you have made by far the worst movie of 2012. Now, if you guys like this little rant or top 10 worst movies video, please like, comment down below, and subscribe to help keep track of my future videos. And if you would like to see the individual reviews for each one of these movies, please check out the description down below, and I'll have them listed in numerical order. And like always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next week.